Okay, we're gonna do Bani and Origamijoe. Okay, so let's make a review. How many games am I doing?
3 games.
3 games. Okay, so about 20 minutes each.
Yeah, but we are like 15 minutes in already, so you're gonna have to steal 5 minutes from each of them. I know that's a little short, but
We'll get the highlights.
yeah, I'm sorry, guys. It's completely my fault. I really apologize. I feel terrible.
This is kind of like we need to look at Joseki here. One of the things you can do is wedge here, and you can force this fight. White has to choose which way they're going to connect, and then you can capture the 1 stone. White's going to get the outside, but you get the corner, which was originally White's area. If I was White, I'd recommend just pressing instead of going for the corner. Then you can either 3-3 or approach on the bottom. Because when you attach to the corner, you're also allowing your opponent to play stuff like this. And if you try to go for the corner here, right? You're giving black the outside and then a potential sente move or some sort of ko. But if you play on the wrong side here, for example, something like this, and you try to come out, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. And the same thing with cutting here. At some point, black can go for the kill. Maybe needs another push. So it's going to be a corner race between these 5 stones and the 3 stones in the corner. So whenever you see black approach here at c4, I recommend leaning. As for black, just play the Hane in the corner. Even if your opponent plays something like this, you can make a base without giving your opponent good shape. Okay, so this is normal. This, however, isn't. The Joseki is the push and then Hane. But you'll notice, Bani, that the bottom side here is pretty flat. So taking the corner probably isn't as good as you think. You can probably just approach here first. But generally speaking, when your opponent plays this, you want to play the Hane. And we'll see, sorry, not that. You'll get this. You can Hane and then play here. Take. And then like this, black gets sente to play on the outside, but white also has a wall on the outside, so you can reduce white's ability to make points here, even by just invading. You also have an attack here on the left side.
Oh boy, guys.
All right. So continue with the game. So you went for the corner. Right. You can just take the 1 stone here. If your opponent plays this, you can crosscut because your opponent made bad shape here. You're able to play the Hane at the head of 2 stones, and you're able to capture the 1 stone. So if your opponent just plays the Atari and comes out, then you get to wedge. And your opponent still has to fix their shape by playing a tiger's mouth. In this case, black gets super thick, and you can start building the center here. As for this, we should probably connect. And then maybe you can just play here. This would be the simpler way to play, but it's not as good as just not playing the Hane directly. For example, you can play like this, and if your opponent connects, then you can attach on the outside. It's a little bit more complicated way to play, but it allows you to use the Aji of the R6 stone, giving up some points in the corner. For example, if your opponent tries to take the one stone, you can give it up. And then you can go ahead and play for the outside. Stuff like this. So I think besides the bottom left, the first real mistake is here in the corner. Taking the one stone is just, it's generally bigger, Joe. For bani, at this point, you probably need to give up the one stone, because if you connect, I think your opponent's going to play this. And they'll go for the outside. So something like this, and black gets super thick on the outside, they can probably play something here, but you do get to cut underneath, and you're also facing the bottom side, so this may be okay. Otherwise, just connecting would revert back to Joseki. But at the same time, I think the direction wasn't ideal for you. Okay, so your opponent, you gave him the Hane. Okay. Yeah, so in Joseki, normally we have a move here, and we'd want to jump rather than push. But compared to the game, you had already pushed and now you're crawling. So you're playing, you're crawling with stones, which you really don't want to do. Because now your opponent got a very, very large wall here, which is very discomforting for you. However, you do get Sente, so maybe just playing here immediately, you might be attacked. Or playing something like this to reduce the right side. You do have the corner points, so it's manageable. But I think with the wall, black is definitely ahead here. Okay, so you took the corner. That's still a big move. I would prefer you to reduce the wall. Same with Joe. This is a great opportunity to see that you have two walls here, and that you can play the Hane first, and then come to the center and play a big move. Either here, or you can go as far as the vector line and force your opponent to invade. So if they, just plop a stone down, then that's your target. You get to attack the stone now. Okay, so we both are deciding that this corner is pretty big. So we have the corner here. Do you want to play the Hane? Even if your opponent plays a double Hane here, you can come back and just give up the one stone, because you still have the corner. So if your opponent just gives it up like this, you're alive in the corner, but you also got 3, which is pretty big. Which means that the corner Aji here is, for the most part, gone. There's no way black's going to be able to live with a stone here anymore, especially with 3 helping out. Okay, so normally you can just take the one stone, but if your opponent doesn't respond to S17, then later you can jump here, or you can attach, and that creates more Aji. But normally you're going to want to just take the one stone. Okay, so let's go into a bit of the fight. I'm probably going to be repetitive when I say that, Bani, you really need to focus on reducing this, because the minute your opponent plays something here, you'll notice that the area is very large, right? And I don't think your first line territory and your 2 second line territories are going to catch up here, especially when you only have about 25, 30 points in the top left. There's definitely more than 70 points in this moyo. All right, so let's go back. All right, so we're still playing on the second line. You'll notice that black is able to play these high stones here. That's what we should aim for. You know, playing something high here or here to start reducing or have a way to reduce. Otherwise, you can try to just immediately jump in. Probably play here. If your opponent plays something like this, at least this way we have some sort of way to make sabaki or I shape. We can play here. We can threaten the weakness here at the cut with 5. Or you can just do a general reduction by playing something black would want to play to increase the moyo here. Now, for example, if you had played a move like this, I think the game would be very manageable because it's a lot harder to defend, I think personally, than it is to invade or reduce. Because now if black wants to keep the territory, he has to play something like this, and there's still a weak group here. So if I'm black, I'm just going to play here. And now you'll see that the vector line has become larger with just these 3 moves. Okay, black invades. I think it's doable. Now we're playing a little scared because we have to, the corner's fine. We need to start fighting. We can't be afraid of our opponent cutting us. Even if our opponent comes out, we can still play here. And if they cut our shape, you know, our corner is still, it's still fine. But this way, if black commits to separating us, he has to kill us. Otherwise, we're going to be able to reduce the center of the board. Okay, so we're continuing to play on the side. It's good black didn't connect. 2 stones aren't as valuable as the center. Okay. At this point, I think you'd be better off just blocking one direction. If you play something like this, your opponent is going to be able to play here, kind of like in a forcing way, especially if they have this move. Because now you have to ask yourself, how are you going to respond? And now they have a bunch of attachments. And if you respond this way, you know, you're going to have to fight this out. And all of a sudden, white's starting to gain I shape in the center. So it's better to try to give your opponent less forcing moves to work with. Because now if they play something like this, I mean, we can separate the 2 groups. Okay. Oh, we're playing the wrong way. We got a bump here. So if our opponent plays this one, we can block. Or if you're looking to fight, we can fight. You know, it's okay if our opponent wants to save these 2 stones, because what we want is the whole right side in the center. So you're trying to protect a group that's not going to die because it has a move at B7 that's going to live. Okay, so Bonnie, you attached here, but you'll notice that you don't have a clear connection, because if you just play normal, I'm going to be able to cut you, right? So maybe threaten to connect somehow with something like this. So if our opponent plays here, we can start making I shape in the center. And if our opponent comes in, we can continue to make I shape. And you'll notice that black does have a kind of like a weak connection here with these shapes. So maybe that's something to aim for. However, at this point, I really don't think white is going to be able to live here. Just because it's very difficult. We need to do some sort of asking moves, and if our opponent plays, you know, something like this, oops, we can just make simple life. even here, or we can ignore it and play here because now we have the extra stones. So we jump and we're allowing our opponent to be thicker. So maybe it's better to just play here directly. And you'll notice that if our opponent tries to attack, you can actually just play here. And we can continue to do this. If they capture, we can extend. And when they cut, we can still threaten the shape. Another thing you can try doing is this. So here, and then connect. So our opponent needs to cut this way in order to cut us, but if they play here, we can give up the one stone and connect. So they won't be able to respond here. But with a move like this, now we can try to make some sort of I shape, either here or come back to this and allow our opponent to attack the 3 stones. We need to think about our opponent's weaknesses here. So notice how in my variation, instead of this stone being there, it was here. Because generally the 3 stones are going to be a lot stronger than the 2 stones that have a bani at the head of 2 stones. So we're allowing our opponents to cut us. We're attaching. This is good. I like it. We're using our opponent's weaknesses. Okay. Okay, so we defended the side, but both these groups, Joe, are very thick. It's very hard for white to justify taking a move to play here. Because when you play this Hane and they try to separate your stones, these 3 stones are connected to the 1 stone. But then you can just connect your group. Then white just only has a stick. And if you give your opponent the 1 stone, it's not completely alive yet. It's only 1 eye. For example, something like this, you can reduce it to 1 eye. If they play something here, it's still only 1 eye. I think. Yeah, no, you can just cut. And if they take, it's still 1 eye. They don't have the ladder, so it's okay for you to do this. And if they try to take the 1 stone, that's fine. Oh, you can't do that, I'm sorry. If they play 6, maybe just play here. And threaten the ice space here. But bani, I think, okay. This is a little bit difficult to go over. But I think we need to start attacking these 2 stones because that's a potential eye right there. So if our opponent comes out, you know, oops, we can threaten to make some sort of net on the stones. Even something like this is starting to create more eye space for us. So if our opponent comes out, you still have Aji here. For example, if you're able to play this move, our opponent needs to break the eye. But our opponent answered, so this is okay. Black really needs to start breaking the shape here. If white simply just connects, then we can turn. And then you'll notice that white's cut from this group in the center to this group. So I want to see how this happens in the game. Okay, so we're making some sort of shape. Okay, Bunny, I like what you're doing. We're forcing black to try to attack us. Unfortunately, our net is too weak. Maybe it would be better to try to do this net with something like this. Even though our opponent is going to get this possibility. At least this way we're looking at a potential cut on these stones and we can play it out. Our group here would die, but if you can get a reasonable attack here as white, then maybe it's okay. Like I said, our net's a little too weak. Even if black doesn't protect this area, like he captured the 3 stones, but even if he couldn't, he could still play something like this or here, and these stones in the center would be safe. So trying to make an eye here just doesn't work. All right. Did you live here by any chance?
No.
No, okay. So I think at that point, I think this review is over. The biggest issue with this board is we kept playing moves like this one and here. And of course, maybe brushing up on our Joseki would be a little bit more helpful.